everyone. It's a really interesting first hour. I'm going to touch on a few topics that the panelists and David and Anna already spoke about. And also, Maria, because I'm going to just blatantly steal the phrase commerce facilitator, because I think it fits very nicely in the session that I'm about to do. I was actually going to mention that Worldline has secretly become one of the largest payment processors in the world through acquisition. But Anna kind of spoiled that by already saying that it's not very secret anymore. I grew up in a company called Global Collect, so I've been through, think of them very fondly. I've been through 4 or 5 acquisitions in Ingenico and Worldline, so over a coffee I can definitely explain to you what it's like to go through an acquisition, the ups and downs. But I still work in the same division where we focus on enterprise merchants across all the verticals. We're a global payments organization, so we look to help and thank you. We help our clients expand around the world. When I first saw the remit for the presentation, blurring the boundaries, expanding the global footprint, my first thought was immediately to go to boundaries being physical. So how do we help our clients go through those geographic boundaries in order to expand? And to be honest, I put the first couple of slides together and almost bored myself to sleep doing that. So I rethought the whole thing, and I focused on what we as a payment service provider have to do with our merchants to focus on the next phase of consumer. So I won't do all 7 trends here. A bit like The Last of Us, I will leave you hanging on point 4. Maybe I come back next year and do 5, 6, and 7. But I'm going to focus on what consumers are doing in order to really challenge merchants, what we do to help facilitate that commerce, as Maria said. So you see consumer behavior is really driving this. Consumers still exist in the physical world, so you will have to process payments cross-border. And I think payments themselves have to change and adapt to support that. So I'll focus on the consumer first, or the next consumers. I'll focus particularly on Gen Z, because these are the guys with the money. I don't think we need to worry about Generation Alpha so much. And when you look at what they're asking of merchants and payment providers, you could remove the 26 in the middle, for instance, and you could put a mobile phone in there. So everything that these guys are doing is driven from the huge amount of information they have in their fingertips. So they expect a personalized approach. They have very high expectations. They're able to use their device in order to analyze quality, price, the brand itself. So these guys are really driving what merchants have to do in order to service them. A couple of scary facts on this slide that I'll mention that scared me anyway. When you start doing a graph with dates and you start thinking about when people were born, you then realize that probably half your team was born after you'd already been working for 10 years. So that's like the first scary piece. I think the second is when you look at the data on Gen Z and what they're doing with their time. So 42% of Gen Z are spending 3 to 4 hours on social media. And more than 30% are spending 4 to 5 hours on social media. So this is an incredible home where buying decisions are being made, product decisions are being made. And I for instance, I put next to Generation Alpha, Apple Pay. I have 2 Generation Z daughters. And to be honest, I don't think in their life they've ever gone to a taxi or a hotel and worried about whether their payment was going to be accepted. They don't think about it. It's invisible. So they just get their phone out and they assume it's going to work, because everywhere that's what it is. Their phone is the key and their payments are always accepted. So that frictionless, that invisible payment experience is already expected. I think what's more interesting for us in the room is not what Generation Z is doing on social media or what they're using it for necessarily. It's more is, I suppose, the social commerce. So not social media, but social commerce. So how do we monetize what consumers are doing on social media? And again, a couple of statistics here that I think, and I'll be adding another one from McKinsey, which I'm going to lean on pretty heavily in the next 10 minutes. Businesses are already adapting. So 52% of all businesses are already selling and plan to sell through social media in 2023. And 55 billion in sales with live shopping. I'll talk about live shopping as a driver for social commerce. But I think what McKinsey is saying is that in one of their recent reports that in 2023, there will be more than $1 trillion in sales over social commerce, which is 30% more than it was in 2022. So it's really exploding. In Europe, with our clients, and I focus mainly on retail and marketplaces, the big focus for them is their own app. So in-app to keep Gen Z loyal, keep them on there within their ecosystem. It's different around the world. So what we see, for instance, in China particularly, is the rise of the super app. So in this example, you see WeChat and Alipay. I think that, why has this exploded in Asia, particularly in China? I think, of course, convenience. And David mentioned it, but also the rise of wallets. So what you see in China is that there isn't such a reliance on banks. The transactions are staying in the app, and it's the proliferation of these wallets built into these super apps with other apps that can service the consumer. I had a few people from the team that live in China visit Europe last week, and I think again where you realize there the differences is in my phone I handily have a folder where I keep all my travel apps, right? My flights, the trains, taxi apps, everything, all organized in a folder called Travel. Well, all of these guys just have an app called Travel, and they have all of the apps that I would put in a folder integrated into that single app. So you see that this is something that's going to drive change here, I think, also outside of China. But I don't think to the same extent. I think, for me personally, that you will see some growth in the Middle East, Africa and Latin America, where the financial system is not so mature, and you also have a significant number still of unbanked consumers that are quite willing to be moving everything, including financial services, into a super app. You see some brands on the right, but honestly, hand on heart, I don't consider these super apps in the same way that I consider WeChat or Alipay to be. So what's our or my journey or our merchant's journey been with social commerce? So I think our first foray was chat commerce. So this came about during COVID. It's a simple and an easy way to have some interaction with the consumer, maybe to resell, upsell. You can imagine the ticketing. You can send videos, for instance, in WhatsApp, and this gives you some consumer interaction, even if it's in a really simple way. I think what's interesting to highlight here is that this is no good unless you have some kind of frictionless payment method. So in this case, it would be a pay by link, something where you would be able to click on an image, a video, or a link and make that payment seamlessly is key to this particular example. I think the next step for us was in 2022. We had a lot of merchants that were really keen to push on to the next level of engaging with their consumers. And we talked about the physical and the digital worlds coming together. This is another export from China. So of those Chinese consumers that have made a payment online in 2022, 70% of them would have made a payment also and bought a product during a live shopping experience. So this is a really big part of what e-commerce is already in China. And we're just beginning to see that grow around the rest of the world. Of course, it's multi-channel. And to key on the payments piece, because we're all here because we're payments experts, what's really key in this example is that you don't want to leave the experience. So having a consumer there, the ability to chat with them, to help them, to be showing live video, they can also communicate in groups in the chat function. You don't want them to leave the app, the selling experience, to make a payment. So it's really important to develop something where the payment itself is done, integrated into the live shopping experience. So what's its journey? This is an example of what's happening outside of China. As we know, all of these verticals are already supported very successfully in China. What we see in North America and Europe is quite obviously that fashion and beauty is easily transferable to something like a live shopping experience. You have influencers, you can show and demonstrate the product, and these are already dominant in the space. What you see in the second level, where it's fast growing, it's a small jump from fashion and beauty to luxury goods. So we already see big brands moving into this space. Grocery and electronics as well. Electronics you can demonstrate again. It's a very competitive area, and the ability to be able to showcase is super important. And then even when you move to the far right and you start talking about travel or automotive, I live in the Netherlands. We have a Chinese electric car brand. The cars are manufactured in Sweden, but they're pushing very hard in the Netherlands as a test country. It's called Lynk & Co. And when you see the technologies and consumer behavior coming together, they, for instance, you don't buy the car, they don't have a showroom, you don't even lease the car, you subscribe to the car. And you can also, when you subscribe to the car, you can also loan it out to other people. So they can use the app in order to borrow your car in the neighborhood if they want. And what's interesting about this is that because there's no showroom, because it's a different selling model, they're already quite active in live shopping itself to promote their brand and the model itself. So just to summarize on the live shopping, this really feeds into what I was talking about Gen Z. So they are, video content, interaction, being able to have that different and personalized experience is super important for them. So the social element. When I think that there's a couple of behaviors or a couple of statistics that we saw when we were running these live shopping events. The cost of customer acquisition is one of the most expensive parts of a merchant's growth. And when we were running these live shopping events, we saw that 50% of those subscribers to that event were new customers. So it's a huge opportunity to bring those new customers in. And then what's also really interesting is that the conversion rate from a customer joining the event and making a purchase is around 30%. So that's much, much higher than you would see on a normal website. One of our top brands did this in a 1-hour session. they took more revenue during that time of online sales as they would normally do in a full day. So it's really super interesting, and like I said, our merchants are driving this hard. I kind of put this slide in. We mentioned it a bit today. Maria mentioned it, just really because I wanted to use the word phygital, which is the new thing apparently. But you do see the worlds combining now. So whether you're in the physical world and you want to use augmented reality in order to imagine what the sofa is going to look like when you buy it and you take it home, to some of the demos that we've done where you would have an online assistant and this is something that we've seen quite interestingly to upsell in the travel vertical, where this assistant would be, one step beyond what a chatbot is on maybe one of the earlier examples I gave. But I think this is an area, again, where you see the digital and the physical worlds merging and is going to carry on growing in the coming years. So we have to mention it. David said that, is the metaverse done already? I mean, to be honest, I don't think it started. So we are seeing our clients dipping their toe in the water here. It's really interesting that I had another quote from McKinsey, which there's an interesting word that McKinsey states that the metaverse could be the next step for creating a new channel. And this multi-channel world could generate 2.6 billion sales by 2030. So there's two coulds there. So I think the answer is no one really knows exactly where this is going. I know from our retail and marketplace clients, they have people working on what the metaverse is going to be for them. So they're still understanding it. Consumers are looking to be involved, as you can see from the statistic here. And I read this morning that Apple will be bringing out their own headset in June. So maybe that's something that's going to further drive what's happening in this space. So apologies for the smallness and my rudimentary drawing here. But what I'm trying to show you is that, whether it's virtual reality or augmented reality, the worlds are merging, and we don't know where that's going to finish. But I think already we see that in our portfolio of business that, the metaverse lends itself very well to gaming. But we start seeing that retailers attaching themselves to gaming companies. So that's why I think you see in this world, there's going to be a merging of what is possible in all of these different environments. And again, it's another example of consumers pushing into another channel and merchants and payment providers having to join them there to make sure that we're not losing them. I will talk briefly about cross-border because it's easy to mention that we're in these virtual worlds. We're live shopping, chat commerce, whatever you want to, whichever one you want to pick. But actually, at the end, the consumer's still physical, so they exist somewhere, and they still have their payment preferences, and they still need everything to be localized. So it's super important that we don't forget that element. And in the end, what we want to try and do is create a frictionless experience when a consumer is buying goods, wherever that is. In retail, we've seen a bit of a contraction in the last 6 months in e-commerce, especially in the commoditized markets in North America and Europe. So what we've done with our clients is also make sure that developing markets with a growing middle class, with a growing Gen Z, if you want, we're creating solutions for them to allow, even though they have to support their clients in a new environment or a new challenge, they still need to support them from a payment methods perspective. So moving to another territory is not always super easy. So what we've done over the years as we develop these new geographies with our clients, who are asking for them, of course, is to find a stepped approach to helping them to localize. So whether it's first cross-border, whether there's whether they migrate to having local entities, whether they start to go truly local. These are all elements that we would bring in and help to make sure that behind all of the different platforms and channels, we're able to support our clients in accepting payments. So where does that leave us? What's next? Well, I think I mentioned that chat commerce was 2020, 21. Live shopping was 22. And I think in 2023, and we mentioned it already, is what do we do with biometrics? What happens when you put a headset on and you want to make a payment? And when you bring some of the topics that everybody talked about this morning, this doesn't work without tokenization. So there's one element there. This doesn't work without payment methods that allow you to one-click pay. But what we will be doing in 2023 is taking virtual reality headsets and using a different kind of biometric to authenticate a client. So in some of the software that we're testing, we can create a personal biometric just from gameplay within 20 to 30 seconds. And then we can authenticate that player and allow them to make in-game purchases without removing the headset. So I think ideas like this, technology like this will help to drive the acceptance of monetizing the metaverse and being able to make payments. So in summary, just 5 topics that I'll mention. Shopping is conversational. It's moving to be conversational. Live commerce generally is on the rise, is the merging of the physical and the digital worlds. I think in lots of geographies, super apps are going to define the user experience. And again, just I suppose the closing comment is that, like we all want to see, payments need to be invisible.